Thank you, Adam. Man, it's good to be here. It feels like home. I'm from our sister city, Ponca City. And so, like it or hate it, we're kind of stuck in this thing together, right? We're like not the biggest cities, but we're out in the middle of nowhere just doing our thing. Like we're the big city for everybody that doesn't live in this city. You know what I'm talking about? And so I love getting to come here. Kevin and I met a year before he planted, and you all planted Open Door Church because we were a new church plant. We had just planted New Point Church in Ponca City about 3 years before Kevin Kevin and Megan planted this church, and we created a mentoring relationship with him. So I've been mentoring, pastoring, coaching Kevin and Megan for a while now, and we became really good friends. And so I don't just call sister cities, but we're also kind of sister churches in this thing together, reaching Central and North Central Oklahoma. And man, I love it. And this is honestly, it's crazy. This is my first time to be here preaching at this church, because every time Kevin's been wanting me to come, I hadn't been able to find someone to fill my pulpit. Kevin's preached for me like 5 times. And so I'm glad to get to come here. Hopefully I can come here more. And I'm just invested in what God's doing here. We serve a big God with a big kingdom. It doesn't matter what church you're a part of. We're all part of the greater church. And so I want to introduce you to my family, though. This is my family, as you see on the screen. My amazing wife, Cheyenne, who's serving at our church this morning, been married for 19 years. Our oldest son, Luke, he's there on the left side with the glasses, and he'll be turning 16 this summer. And he has Down syndrome, and man, God's just used him in a tremendous way to teach us, to lead us, to grow us. Such a fun kid. Then our oldest daughter on the right, Madeline. Our middle daughter, Parker, she's in the middle there, and then my youngest son, Jude, who's a character. He's in the front, and so Jude's actually here today. He's my traveling buddy. He's with me in the kids' church right now. And I just want to say, Kevin and Megan are some amazing pastors, and you are very, very fortunate to have them here. They love the Lord, number one. They love their family, number two, but they love you equally as much as family. And man, I just can't say enough. I've known Kevin a long time, and what you see on the outside is just a fraction of the integrity and the love for Jesus that he has on the inside. And he is a man that doesn't just project something on the outside. He is the real deal, and you all should honor him. I'm very glad that he gets some time off. I also want to honor Pastor Adam and Josh and Cass and just the people who serve so faithfully to lead your church. And there are others I didn't mention, but can we just honor them today? We are just so thankful for those that pour out and sometimes never get recognized. So I'm going to take time to recognize them. And so today, as we dig into this message, here's what I tell my church often is this, that as I preach, the louder you are, the faster I preach, okay? And not only the faster I preach, but the better I preach. So it only benefits you to be loud, say some amens, some ahs, come on now, preacher, preach it, whatever you got to do, because it just makes it go quicker, and it's that much better, all right? So today I brought some luggage, not because it's like too far from Ponca City, like I'm planning to stay like a week here, but I brought some baggage here. Think, some of y'all maybe been traveling over the summer or maybe plan to. You got to fly somewhere, going through the airport, you got your family, you're all like dragging these things along with you, and depending on if you got a lot of kids or not, sometimes you got a lot of baggage. And how many of you know that your bags that you carry can actually keep you from getting to the destination? You might miss your plane, you might miss your connecting flight in between planes, you might actually miss your transportation once you land where you're at. And here's the thing, like, it may not even stop you from getting to the destination, but it definitely could delay you. You might miss it and have to catch another flight. Today I'm going to be talking about the bags we carry that are keeping us from the calling of God on our life. If you're a note taker today, I challenge you, pull out a phone, pull out something, write it on your arm, whatever. I got a lot of notes that you're going to want to take down, because I think that after this message today, you're going to want to reflect back upon what God spoke to you. So the baggage can prevent you from arriving at your intended destination. 1 Samuel chapter 10, we're going to look at a guy's story. His name is Saul, and Saul is one of those guys who was the first king of Israel, but his baggage that he never dealt with actually led to his downfall. The baggage he didn't deal with led to his downfall. See, there's this moment in his life when he was supposed to be anointed as the next king of Israel, and when he should be stepping into the throne as actually the first king in Israel. Where did they find him? Listen to this verse, 1 Samuel 10:22. It says, they had found him. He has hidden himself among the baggage. Everybody say baggage. Baggage. Listen, everybody's got baggage. Can I tell you that? You got it. I got it. We all got some baggage. This story, though, this morning isn't about physical baggage as so much as about the baggage on the inside. Now, I want to tell you this, that this story is about a man named Saul who was called by God, but he struggled to believe it. Anybody struggle to believe the call that God has on your life? Anybody just question it? Anybody wonder, why me? How? Well, today I pray that today's going to be a freeing message for you, as freeing it has been for me, because I'm preaching to you a message that is directly for me. You all just get to listen along too, okay? Today I titled the message, Hiding Among the Baggage. Hiding Among the Baggage. Now, King Saul, this is one of the other famous Sauls in the Bible. So in the New Testament, you have a man named Paul, who was formerly known as Saul. I'm not talking about that guy. I'm talking about the Saul in the Old Testament who became the first king of Israel. And we read about his story in the books of 1 and 2 Samuel. Specifically, 1 Samuel, he becomes king around 1000 BC. Now, this is a Bible. Hopefully I don't have to tell you that this is the Bible, but do you really know what the Bible is? The Bible is not some made-up folklore and some religious textbook. It actually is history. It's not made-up stories. These are real people who lived in real time, and this story takes place, the story of Saul, about 1,000 years BC, 1,000 years before Jesus. And as we look into kind of the time period of the nation of Israel, I want to set the scene that the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, they tell the story of God and how he created the world, Genesis, all the way through creation, how he called a people to himself, the nation of Israel, how eventually they found themselves enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, and then God, through a man named Moses, brought rescue out of Egypt and into the promised land, where they actually journeyed in that desert for 40 years before finally achieving or gaining their territory in the promised land of Canaan. Now, as they were in the promised land, God set up the first leadership in the promised land was not a king. They actually had judges who reigned. Judges were kind of a combination of a military leader who would go out and lead their army and a political leader. And so for 500 years, the Israelites had no king, but they had judges who led them as they took over more territory that God had given them, as they spread out as the 12 tribes of Israel. But after about 500 years, they started crying out to God, saying, God, I want a king like them. The other nations around us, they got kings. How come we don't have a king? We want a king to lead us. And so God obliged, and God said, okay, it's not my desire that you have a king, because I know sometimes kings can become corrupt, but we'll do it. And so he spoke to the prophet Samuel. He said, Samuel, I'm going to show you the guy to set up as the first king. And he shows him Saul. Now, Saul begins this journey. We're going to read through his story today, but how many of you are thinking about the Saul that we know after David? So what I mean by that is when I say King Saul, a lot of us has this negative perspective of Saul. Like the downfall of Saul, the bad Saul that tried to kill King David's Saul, the King Saul that chased after David for many years in the wilderness, that Saul. But what you got to realize is Saul wasn't always that guy. Saul started his reign as king as one who was chosen by God, faithful and anointed, filled with the Spirit of God, who led Israel faithfully. That was Saul. He led for 40 years as king, and for the first 20 years of that, just about, he was so faithful. The problem was Saul had baggage in his life that he didn't effectively deal with, and it eventually led to his downfall. Today I preach this message because I think it's a warning to every one of us to be careful, because if we don't deal with the baggage beneath the surface, it also may not only prevent us from our calling, it can delay us from our calling, but ultimately it can lead to our own downfall. So here's the story, 1 Samuel. Chapter 8, we're going to read through it. It'll be on the screens, but if you got a Bible, you can turn there with me. We're going to read some selected passages to jump in and get there. But 1 Samuel chapter 8, we read about Israel asking for a king. Verse 19, it says, we want a king over us. And then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and to fight our battles. Then, verse 21, when Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. So Samuel's like, God, they want a king. Are we sure about this? But God confirmed with him and said, now listen to them and give them a king. Okay, chapter 9, verse 1. There was a Benjamite, a man of standing. So he's from the tribe of Benjamin, one of the 12 tribes, whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, son of Zeror, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah of Benjamin. If you're looking for some boy names, there's some strong boy names in that list, all right? Now this man Kish, he had a son named Saul. Here's where Saul comes on the scene. As handsome as a young man as could be found anywhere in Israel, and he was a head taller than anyone else. So he was strong, he was handsome, he was tall, he was a man that looked like a king. Now, still as a young man, maybe even as a teenager, his father sends him out to go find some donkeys that had been lost. Verse 3, now the donkeys belonging to Saul's father Kish were lost. Kish said to his son Saul, take one of the servants with you and go and look for the donkeys. So Saul is on this journey. He's going to go find his dad's donkeys. And while he's on this journey, he encounters the prophet Samuel. Look at verse 17. When Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, this is the man. This is the man I spoke to you about. He will govern my people. So Samuel finds Saul as he's looking for these donkeys. And Samuel says, hey, Saul, you're the guy. You're the guy that God's going to set up as the first king. Now listen to Saul's response in verse 21. But Saul answered, but am I not a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel? And as is not my clan the least of all the clans of the tribe of Benjamin? Why do you say such a thing to me? You see the reluctance in his voice? When I was reading through this story in my own quiet time a couple months ago, God began to speak to me and say, Kyle, this is you. You're the reluctant leader. You're the guy who I've called to do something, yet you continually drag your feet. Any reluctant leaders here? You feel a call of God on your life, but yet you drug your feet? This is Saul. But instead of Samuel listening to him, Samuel says, no. You're the guy. Chapter 10, verse 1. It says, then Samuel took a flask of olive oil, poured it on Saul's head, and kissed him, saying, has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance? Now look at verse 6. It says, then the Spirit of the Lord will come powerfully upon you, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be changed, everybody say changed, into a different person. And once these signs are fulfilled, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. So Saul goes out from this private anointing, verse 9. As Saul turned to leave Samuel, God changed Saul's heart, and all these signs were fulfilled that day. When he and his servant arrived at Gibeah, a procession of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came powerfully upon him, and he joined in their prophesying. When all those who had formerly known him saw him prophesying with the prophets, they asked each other, what is this? What is this that has happened to the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? Now skip on down. There comes a time where Samuel gathers all of the nation of Israel to anoint Saul as the new king. So now present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and clans. Verse 20. So when Samuel had all Israel come forward tribes by tribes, and then the tribe of Benjamin was taken by lot, and then he brought forward the tribe of Benjamin by clan, and Matri's clan was taken. Finally, Saul, son of Kish, was taken. So Samuel gathers all of the nation. They've gathered from all over the region by tribes, and then he narrows it down, clan by clan, tribe by tribe, etc., down to one man named Saul, and they went to look for him, but he was not to be found. Verse 22. So they inquired further of the Lord, has the man come here yet? Like, where is he? Is he not here yet? And the Lord said, I picture this like as the moment where God is like face palming. He's like, oh my gosh, where's my man of God? I said he's supposed to be the king, and now he's not there. And the Lord said, yes, he's here, but he has hidden himself among the baggage. Verse 23, they ran and they brought him out. And as he stood among the people, he was a head taller than any of the others. And Samuel said to all the people, do you see the man the Lord has chosen? There's no one like him among the people. He's tall, he's strong, he's handsome. Then the people shouted, long live the king. Then Samuel explained to the people the rights and the duties of the kingship. Remember, this is the first king they've ever had. So Samuel's writing down, here's what a king is. Here's how you follow him. Here's what you're supposed to do. Here's his duties and his roles. Then he wrote them down on the scroll and he deposited it before the Lord. Then Samuel dismissed the people to go to their own homes. Saul also went to his home in Gibeah, accompanied by valiant men whose hearts God had touched. But some scoundrels, some people opposed him, and they said, how can this fellow save us? This guy? And they despised him, and they brought him no gifts. But Saul kept silent. Saul kept silent. Listen, today I want to, in the short time that I have, I want to preach a message to you that I believe is going to be specifically for people today who feel called by God to do something, yet you've dragged your feet. 1 Samuel 10:21, listen, the people, they were looking for a leader, and it says when they looked for him, he was not to be found. Can I just remind you, this world is looking for leaders. This world is looking for people who are going to lead them into the promises of God in their life. Now, they may not recognize God, they may not know God, and they may not know he has a will and a plan for their life, but God does. And every person, though, is looking for someone who can lead them to God and into his promises. The question I want to ask you today, though, is if people are looking for godly leaders, will they find you? Or have you also hidden yourself? Are you so stuck in the baggage you carry that you cannot lead because you're so behind, that you're so stuck, you're so weighted down, you're so buried in the baggage? Some of you feel called to do something, yet when you've had the opportunity to step into that calling, you've dragged your feet. You've had an opportunity, but yet rather than stepping in, you've stepped back. Today, I think that honestly, every one of us are called to lead something, because leadership isn't about a position or a title. Leadership is influence. And every one of you have someone you're influencing in your life who's looking to you to take the first step, to step into the call that God has on your life. But are you going to be found hidden behind your baggage? Is your baggage preventing you from stepping into the calling? That verse in 1 Samuel 10:22, it says, he has hidden himself among the baggage. That word baggage, it's interesting because in Hebrew it can also be translated supplies. Baggage or supplies. Now, what is that? Well, remember the context that Samuel's gathered all of the nations of Israel for this ceremony, probably going to be a week long or so, where they're going to have a big party. They're going to signify this is the new king. They're going to set him up. Well, they've traveled from all over the region. They've brought their tents. They brought bags and supplies. They brought everything, and they've put them to the side, and they've gone to the ceremony. Well, Saul, rather than being at the ceremony where he should be, he's hiding among the bags. And what I think that we need to understand the story is that the baggage around Saul reveals the baggage within Saul. And I think it's a spiritual truth today that you all have baggage that may not be seen on the outside, but you carry it with you everywhere you go. And today in Saul's story, God spoke to me, because I deal with this too, that there are 3 bags that we all carry, that if we don't do something with it, it ultimately is going to delay or even destroy the call of God in our life. So today, I brought some bags out. If you're with me, say amen. Amen. All right, so this first bag, this is the bag of insecurity. The bag of insecurity. Insecurity. This is where Saul found himself when he is called by God. Look at this verse with me for a moment. 1 Samuel 9:17. Samuel goes out, he's looking, and says, when Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, this is the man. Who said this is the man? Who said it? The Lord. Notice, this isn't Saul saying, hey, I'm a good leader, I'm going to step into this. This isn't even Samuel saying, no, I see a good leader. No, this is God calling Saul. Are you with me? God called him, but then look at the next few verses, Saul's response to that. It says in verse 21, it says, Saul answered, but am I not a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel, and my clan the least of all of the clans of the tribe of Benjamin? Why do you say such a thing to me? Here's what I want you to understand, if you're taking some notes today, that Saul was chosen by God, but he was unconvinced about himself. This is insecurity. Have you ever struggled with this question, God, I think you're calling me, but why me? Like, I'm so I don't have a good history. I've got stuff in my life that's been sinful and wrong. I'm messed up. I don't have a good lineage. I mean, I'm not a person of promise or a person of leader. Like, that's not me. Like, when people look at my life, that's not me. Well, that was Saul. Saul was from the smallest tribe. Now, what you have to understand is about 150 years earlier, the rest of the tribes of Israel almost destroyed the tribe of Benjamin because they were so sinful and unrighteous, God told them to take them out. There was this story that's told, you could read about it in the beginning of the book of Judges, where there was a visiting guy and his concubine. They come into the territory of Benjamin, to the very same hometown of Saul, and the men of Benjamin, they kidnap, rape, and kill this woman. And then, when the rest of the tribes go to confront it, rather than the tribe of Benjamin saying, no, these are the guys, you need to discipline them, they hide the guys. And so the entire tribe is willing to die for some guy's wrongdoing. All of them hide the sin, they do nothing about it, and so the rest of the nation comes in and they wipe everybody out except for 600 people left in the tribe of Benjamin. And this just happened about 150 years before. Imagine the shame of the name of the tribe of Benjamin if that's you. And that's what Saul is carrying with him. Shame of a past. Maybe some things in his past that he did, but also there's stuff that he didn't do. And some of you are carrying a bag of insecurity because of the shame you carry. Because of mistakes you made, maybe because of wrongdoing that's happened to you, you have disqualified yourself from the call of God in your life. And I'm telling you that today God's calling you out. God's saying that you've got to get over this bag. You've got to walk out of it in freedom. Look, although Saul is carrying this around, although he's got excuses, what does Samuel do? Samuel says, don't worry about it. Chapter 10, verse 1, Samuel anoints him as the new king. And then look what happens at this anointing. Verse 6 goes on to say this. Put it on the screen. It says, the Spirit of the Lord will come powerfully on you. So he's filled with the Spirit. He begins to prophesy, and he is changed into a different person. God anoints him, fills him with the Spirit, and changes him from who he once was to who God created him to be. I just want to remind you today of a phrase that's often said, but you need to hear it, that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Like, you don't have to be the guy or the gal that you think or that other people see as the leader, and God will still call you because it's not about you. God often calls people to lead who are part of the lesser people because it's not about you or me, it's about God. And when God does that, he is elevated, not the person. In fact, God might have called you to it because you're not the person that should be. You're not the person that everybody would point to. You're not the person. You're the person that people would look to and say, who here? Who her? They've been above the bag? No way. Not them. Because it's through the lesser people God will elevate himself. Now, in this process, I want you to understand that if God's called you to it, He's going to equip you for it. He's going to equip you for it. You can trust in His call in your life. But His timing is not always our timing. Sometimes we feel the call of God and we're like, all right, God, let's do it right now. Let's do it right now. In Samuel's case, or in Saul's case, look what happens in verse 9. Saul is anointed as king in kind of this private way, and then he goes out in the Spirit's power. It says Saul leaves Samuel. God changed his heart on the inside, and then these signs, the anointing, the calling, etc., is fulfilled. It goes on in the next few verses. Look at verse 10. It says, when he and his servant arrived at Gibeah, a procession of prophets met him. The Spirit of God came powerfully upon him, and he began to prophesy. So first thing I want you to understand, I want you to understand that there's this private anointing that happens first before public appointing. So this is before the nations are called and Saul is set up as the king. He is anointed by Samuel, filled by the Spirit of God, and starts to take steps to minister in the power of God long before he has a position or a title or recognition. And as he's ministering, then people see him ministering in power and they say, what's got into that guy? What's different about them? I see something different. I want to encourage you today, this is how calling happens. There's a call on your life that happens on the inside. There's this internal burning, passion, desire that other people may not initially realize, but you just feel it in your bones. And then as you step out into that calling, then God begins to pull other people out that see it. And they start to say, hey, I see something in you. Man, you keep doing that. Man, I'm impressed by your leadership. I'm impressed by your wisdom. I'm impressed by that. And that was Saul. He began to step out in it. So often for you got to realize that your insecurities will keep you from taking next steps. And you will keep waiting and waiting and waiting around. But that's not how God works. You'll wait for a title or a position or a promotion before you ever take a step of faith. Today, you need to take a step, whether you got the position or the title to prove it. You have to take a step in your calling because that's what God's called you and equipped you to do. And when you do that, then others will begin to take notice. So today, stop delaying. So this is the first bag, insecurity. You got to trust that God's with you because He's called you. Here's the second bag, though, I think that we see in his story, and it's this bag of uncertainty. Uncertainty. Uncertainty about what God's called you to do, when He's called you to do it, and how He's called you to do it. Have you ever felt something on the inside and you're like, God, okay, like I'll do it, but can you just give me some confirmation? God, can you just show me a little bit more? Like, God, can you please just make it a little more clear? Like, God, could you really help me to see it and understand it better? Anybody? Am I resonating with anybody today? I'm going to be preaching here all day. You guys are so quiet. Come on now. Listen, this was Saul. This was Saul's life, and this was me too. It's like, God, okay, I feel it, but I'm not sure. I'm uncertain. And in my life, even as a pastor, like I've allowed fear and doubt, insecurity and uncertainty to lead me to indecision. And that indecision has led me to paralysis where I choose to do nothing even though I feel led on the inside to do something. So I drag my feet. Let me just be real with you. There comes a point in your life where waiting becomes disobedience. You think you're waiting in faith. God, I'm just trusting you. God, I'm just praying and waiting for the right time, for the right word. I'm uncertain. God, would you give me clarity? And listen, so often you'll spend years praying for more clarity when God's saying, I've already told you. I want you to understand this, that maybe you're not waiting on God. Maybe He's waiting on you. He's called you. He's anointed you. He sent you. And you're waiting for all of the uncertainty of the steps to be taken away. Can I tell you that's not how God works? God will not remove all the uncertainty because if you were sure about something, can I tell you this? You wouldn't need Him. If you were sure about how it would end up or how it would turn out, you wouldn't need Him. You wouldn't need faith. You wouldn't need trust. But what happens is in our uncertainty, it drives us to our knees because we need God to show up or we're going to look like fools. So in your uncertainty, you've got to be willing to trust God to take a step. And the promise is God is with you. There's this verse that God shouted out to me, 1 Samuel 10:7. He's anointed, Saul is sent, and here's what it says. It says, once these signs are fulfilled, once you're anointed, once you're filled, once you're commissioned, once you're sent, once those signs are fulfilled, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. I love this. This is one of those phrases that takes away every one of my excuses of uncertainty, because essentially what Samuel is telling Saul is like, listen, you already got everything you need to do what God's called you to do, so just do it. Just do it. Remember the phrase, Nike? Just do it. Just do it. God's called us to it. We need to do it. Now, this isn't a phrase that says, well, just do whatever you want. That's not what it is. This is a phrase to recognize that God's with you. He's called you. He's commissioned you. Stop waiting and take a step. Just do it. I kind of laugh at this because God shouted this verse at me, do whatever is before you. Trust that I'm with you. Because so often as I'm trying to lead our church boldly in faith, and we're a similar church to you all in a lot of ways. God's doing some extraordinary things. We've gone from 2 to 3 to 4 services on a Sunday morning, running out of space. We've bought land. We're going to build at some point. And I'm trying to lead our church faithfully. I'm trying to be bold on the outside and lead us forward in the directions I believe that God has called me to lead. Now, can I just confirm with you, you need to understand this. As a pastor, same with Kevin as well, on the outside we project confidence, but on the inside we're battling insecurity and uncertainty. Let me just be real. So often when I'm leading us in bold steps, there are people in our church that mean well, but they'll say, are you sure, Pastor? Have you prayed about it? Are you sure we need to start another service? That's going to be really hard. Are you sure we need to build another building? That's going to be really expensive. Are you sure about it? And I laugh like it's a great question. Have you prayed about it? You should ask yourself and pastor, have you prayed about it? That's a good thing. But the reason why I laugh is because I'm the reluctant leader, and so often your pastor probably is too, that the problem isn't that they haven't prayed about it. Most likely they've thought about it and prayed about it for weeks and months and even longer years. The problem isn't that they haven't prayed about it. The problem is that they prayed about it so much that for them not to do something with it would be sin. And that may be you too. Did you know that you can sin against God by praying about something too long? It's a wild thought. But if God's called you to it and all you do is continue to pray about it and think about it and do nothing with it, I believe for you that's disobedience. It's disobedience. For me, it's the same way. I just want to give you the permission today to step out, whether you're uncertain and unsure, to step out, because to do anything other than that is disobedience. I remember when we were going to plant our church. We are now 11 years old as a church. We planted in 2015. I prayed about it for 3 years before we ever did anything about it. And I remember there was a time where I went to one of my pastors in my life and one of my mentors, and I began to tell him the calling that I felt on the inside. And at some point he's like, you feel God called you to this? Yes. You feel God's with you? Yes. You see a need? Yes. And then he said this, well, Kyle, it's time. Either poop or get off the pot. And I still remember that to this day because it was so true. It's like, then what are you waiting on? Everything's ready to go. You need to just take the next step. Today's the day. Some of you all need to stop delaying in your calling. You need to step into it and do what God's called you to do. Now, in our life, sometimes we have another bag that prevents us from our call, and it's this third one. It's this. It's the bag of approval. Anybody else struggle with the need for approval? Anybody? The need to please people. To please people. Look at this verse. 26 and 27, Saul's story. It says, so Saul went to his home in Gibeah accompanied by valiant men whose hearts had been touched, but some scoundrels, some opponents said, "How can this fellow save us?" And they despised him and brought him no gifts. They did not recognize him as the king, but Saul kept silent. You need to understand this today. Every God-given assignment attracts both supporters and critics. If you ever intend to do something good and godly in your life that does something, expect people to oppose you because they ain't you. Like I think Samuel could have been saying this, like hate is going to hate, all right? That's what you got to realize. That's straight from the Bible, all right? That's what happened to Saul. There were some whom God touched their hearts to support him, and there were some who opposed him, these scoundrels. They didn't even recognize him as the new king. Now, Saul could have, in his new reign as king, he probably could have done something about that right away. He probably could have stepped in and said something. Here's what happens, though. We all need to recognize this. When you're called to something, there are always going to be people who oppose you because they weren't called to the same things in the same way as you. And they'll never understand. And what happens, though, is when we're looking for their approval, we're struggling with internal insecurities and unsureness and uncertainty. It leads us to look for approval. So what happens is that when you have all these internal things going on, internal doubts, you look for external approval. So we're like, okay, God, I'll do what you're calling me to do, but will you just bring people around me that are going to confirm it? God, will everybody just agree with me so I know this is the right way? God, will you please bring enough people around beside me that I'm so sure in my calling that there's nothing else for me to do? God, please show me through other people. I need like if you give me like 9 people for me and 1 person against, then I'll know. I think it's crazy. Think about Moses for a moment. Moses brought the people of Israel out of 400 years of slavery, provided for them in the desert, and they're on to the promised land and freedom. And yet, did not the Israelites say, you know what, I'm not sure of this guy Moses. I think we had it better back in Egypt as slaves. Like Moses didn't get 100% approval. Okay, let me give you another one. How about Jesus? The best leader to ever live on the face of the planet, the best human being. He never sinned, not once, yet even Jesus didn't have everybody's support, and eventually Jesus was crucified. Isn't it wild? So why would you or I ever expect that we're going to get 100% approval or 100% people on our side before we do anything? It doesn't happen that way. And if you wait for everyone's approval, you will deny and delay God's call in your life. How do I know that Saul struggled with this? Because he struggled with it for the rest of his life. This is a bag that Saul never dealt with. For the rest of Saul's life, he battled such need for approval. He was asking for people to affirm him and praise him. He became jealous and insecure. It was just thriving within him. This was Saul. Saul in his life, he had to seek other people to affirm what he knew he should be doing. And so often what happens is when you need other people's approval, you focus on the critic and you lose sight of the supporters. So your opposition will blind you to the support God's provided you. This is what happened to Saul with David. Did you know David, although he was anointed as the next king of Israel, David's time on the throne was going to take some time to get there. And that whole time, David supported Saul. He was with Saul. He was behind Saul. And yet Saul began to see the competition coming. People would say, well, Saul has slayed his thousands, but David, his tens of thousands. And the competition mindset set in. And so Saul began to focus on the critics, trying to please the critics, trying to win their favor, win their approval. And he lost sight of the calling on his life. So question, what do you do? What do you do with the haters? What do you do with the critics in your life? Look what Saul did. What did Saul do? Final verse that we read. What does it say in verse 27? Next verse. It says, but scoundrels came, they denied him, they despised him. But Saul, say it with me, kept silent. Saul could have fought this battle. He was king. He had all the authority to shut these people up. He had all authority to defend himself, but yet he kept silent. Sometimes the strongest response to a critic is to say nothing. Because if he would have addressed the critics, he would have lost sight of his supporters and his calling. So often we put all of our attention on trying to win over the critics when God has never called us to win the critics. He's called us to answer the call to walk in our calling. I want you to write this in, that your assignment is more important than your image. What God's called you to is more important than proving your calling to everybody else who denies it. If you take that mentality, you will waste the time that God has given you. You'll waste the energy that God has given you. Today, God's calling you to step into something and out of the bags that you've been holding on to or hiding behind. I want you to stand on your feet for a moment. Stand with me as we respond in this moment. 1 Samuel 10:7. I'm going to show you that verse one more time. Listen, this is God's call to you. Saul was struggling with insecurity. He was struggling with uncertainty. He was struggling with the approval of people. And yet God said, I'm with you. I've called you. I've anointed you. I've sent you. And then do whatever your hand finds to do. For God is, say it with me, with you. God's with you. I want you to bow your heads for a moment. What are you waiting on? What bags are you carrying today that are keeping you from stepping out in the call of God? The assignment on your life. It could be an assignment here at the church that you've been dragging your feet. I'm not qualified. I don't have enough experience. I haven't been a part of the church long enough. I haven't been a Christian long enough. What are you waiting on? Maybe there's a call of God in the community or at your workplace or in your family, something that you think that, man, I'm so unsure. I don't have certainty. I don't know what to do. God, show me more. God, give me another sign. And you're waiting on God all the while He's waiting on you. Today, I'm going to challenge you. Do what's in front of you. Some of you are so desperate for approval, you've lost sight of your calling. You're looking for other people to tell you what your call is rather than listen to the God who's already spoken it over your life. You're waiting for 100% approval, which is never going to happen. And you've delayed and you've denied. Today you got to step out.